Camron has weighed in on this whole debate. Him and Mace had dialogue on their show today, speaking about the Cam Newton, Jason Whitlock, and Stephen A. Smith situation. Now, me personally, another person I've met, I actually interviewed Camron. Cool dude, solid dude, move different. He liked that for real. Now, with that being said, he has now since put up the microphone, at least with the rap career, picked up the sports casting and doing commentary on different sports events. Got one of the hottest sports podcasts out, over 900,000 subscribers. Him and Mace constantly stay in the headlines, but they do theirs a little different. They're very similar to me. A little I could say unpolished, very much for the streets. And they make it make sense, and I like their style. Now, with that being said, this whole situation involving Cam Newton and Stephen A. Smith has become a lot of dialogue in the sports media places. Many people taking two different sides. Some people feel like Stephen A. is right. Some people feel like Cam is right. I'm going to go with Cam because for the simple fact, Cam let Stephen A. Smith know, bruh, there is no loyalty in the media game, especially the content game. Ain't no loyalty. There is no love amongst these. The dude you calling your partners take your thumbnail, your title, your everything. This is a very cutthroat business being in the content game. I'm going to always be an advocate for that and speaking on that. Dudes will do you dirty, dog. Copy your whole style, your background. They don't give a damn. It's all about the pesos. Now, with that being said, man, let's pull up what Cam Newton and May said on a podcast today, because this right here has simply broken the damn internet, and we got to talk about this right now. Let's blow it up. Let's roll it.
Cam Newton and Stephen A. Smith?
No.
Okay, so do you know that Jason Whitlock always has a problem with Stephen A. Smith all the time?
I do know that.
You do know that. Cam Newton interviewed Jason Whitlock, and Jason Whitlock was talking shit about Stephen A. Smith on the show. So a week later, they questioned Cam Newton like, yo, why would you do that? Kendrick Perkins, Ryan Clark, like, yo, Stephen A. bought you on First Take, yada, 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 yada. Why would you interview somebody and not only interview his enemy, let him talk shit about him? So, it's a big discussion, and Stephen A. kind of told Cam, yo, it ain't no problem, but, it is loyalty in this business. And Cam Newton said, when it comes to this business, it's no loyalty. And that's what his comment was. So Sin asked me if he did that, would I fire him? And I told him, I wouldn't fire you because I play a different type of game. You would quit before I even fire you for the shit that I would probably do. You would quit before I fire you. You'll be ass naked on the I-15 interviewing a nigga on 115 degrees. If you don't want to do that, then I ain't got no choice. But let's start the show with that. Mace, what do you feel about Cam Newton actually interviewing Jason Whitlock, not just interviewing Jason Whitlock, because we know the history between him and Stephen A. Smith, him actually letting him talk about, because Cam could have edited it wasn't live. Yeah. He actually let him talk about Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith didn't address Cam Newton in the beginning because he said, whatever, but Ryan Clark and Kendrick Perkins basically came to the defense of Stephen A. Smith, like, this dude gave you a platform, this, that, and the third. And Cam Newton, like, I got my own platform. Ain't no loyalty in this business. Two questions. How do you feel about that? And then secondly, would you fire Cam Newton from First Take if you were in this position?
If I was in Stephen A.'s position?
Yes.
I think sometimes you have to do what you know is best. I think to think that another man is going to make the decision that you want him to make is kind of naive, right? Like, no matter how much you could have love for me. You're gonna make the decision that Cam should make. That's what makes you Cam. I'm gonna make the decision that makes me Mace.
Exactly. So you can't control what's coming out of Cam Newton's mouth just because you think you got a little power over him because he work at your show. It don't work like that, bro. And many times, a lot of these entertainers, some of your favorite athletes to try to mute you or get you to say certain stuff as if they got power over you. You can't do that. It's content, because I don't know, man. It's just different because they always try to control people, bro. And to me, that messes up the industry. So salute to Cam, bro.
That's what makes me Mace. And I think when you look at this kind of interview, I think this is what's missing. Not particular this interview, but interviews of this type. It's so much biasness in media that people don't get the real stories. Unless we really do real journalism starts with facts and truth. So if this is a person that holds a portion of the story that we need, for us to go around this person is for us to have to make up our own story. And I think it's time to write a new narrative in media. That's really why I got into it. Other than just really work with you, it's really to write a new narrative in media. It's time for a new narrative. People have always protected the people they love. They've always protected the people they rock with. So then you never really get the truth. You're always listening to biased stories by biased people. I think one of the biggest interviews in the world would be one of us, right? But who would do that? You get what I'm saying? But that's what media is really about. Media is really about telling the stories that other people cannot tell. You sitting right there and him having a mic and the lights on both of y'all with, okay, go from the beginning to now. You'll break the internet. Will be no story bigger than that. But do you want to do it? Do you feel like doing it? That's real media at its best. There's no story that would be bigger than that.
Instead, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm on the verge because, if I had to put myself in that position, and Mace, I understand where you're coming from because you want a holistic point of view. You don't want everything to be biased. People should be able to stick to the facts. I totally understand that. But if I was invited or I brought somebody on my show that didn't like y'all, right? I'm not just finna let them sit and say bad things about y'all. You can have your opinion. And especially if I know you're saying things that I know are not true about y'all and your character, regardless of what, because the internet also makes a lot of assumptions. So y'all are two people that I sit next to 5 times a week. Me personally, you can't say this about Cam. You can't say this about Mace because that's not true. And so I also have the right. I can be unbiased, but I'm going to ask questions.
She got a good point, man. Y'all can check out the entire clip on Cam and Mace YouTube channel, man. Get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts about this. Until next time, man. Peace out.